Hey, you're listening to episode number 2 of the... Hey, you're listening to episode number 3 of the Obsessive Creative Podcast. Here, we talk about what it means to be a thriving, healthy, obsessive, creative person so you can make work that matters. I'm your host, Luke Cleland, and you can stay up to date on all things obsessive and creative by following me on Instagram at LukeWTCleland. Let's get into the show. Okay, so it's early enough in January, still early enough that we can talk about resolutions, and late enough in January where they may be waning off at this point, or maybe never started. I may be guilty of this. I'm not a resolution hater. I actually love resolutions. I love New Year's because it's one of the times of the year where it just feels fresh. There's so much possibility coming, and I love it. One of the resolutions that I want to share is slowing down. It's about the one resolution that I have kind of kept so far. And I figure what a better way to make myself accountable than making an episode about it. So today's episode is all about slowing down and how that might be the fastest way of getting where you want to go. Remember back in episode 1, 2 whole episodes ago, when we were talking about 23 Balsam. It was like this little apartment that I lived in. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, go back to episode 1 and take a listen. So I want us to all go there. I want us to take a deep breath wherever you are, if you're in the car or you're on a run or sitting on your couch. I want you to take a breath. I want you to plop down on one of the couches with me in 23 Balsam, and we're going to imagine that we're just chilling. We've got these super comfy couches. They were free from a friend because I'm just out of university and I don't have much money. And we're just going to sit. We're going to have maybe a little cup of coffee, some water, or whatever you need to drink, and we're going to chat. And also imagine you have nothing going on for the rest of the tonight and nothing tomorrow. You have no plans. Like you just want to be present, and we're going to chat. I know for a lot of us, even the idea of just sitting back and stopping, it seems impossible. And I know that feeling. But for the next couple minutes, I just want you to imagine that feeling of your shoulders dropping, sitting back, and resting. So even if the idea of sitting and stopping everything stresses you out a little bit, then you were exactly where I was last year. I was hustling so much. I was going. I was trying to grow. I was trying to do everything I could to go forward in my business and creative career, that stopping at all it seemed impossible. And if you've done that before, you know how much a toll it can take on you, which is why one of the resolutions this year that I'm trying to put into practice is slowing down. Because slowing down isn't just a response to pushing hard. I think it's key to being an obsessive creative and to be a successful, healthy, thriving individual. Because if we want to create and we want to be pushing ahead and doing the right thing, it's only when we slow down and that we can actually take time to think, process, and dream and imagine is when we can really make some traction. So if you're feeling way too stressed out and you're feeling like you're just like hustling thin, then maybe there's another way that we can do life together. So I've got a couple ideas of how slowing down can really make a huge impact, even though it seems counterintuitive, but is actually the only way that we can actually go forward and go in the right direction. So I think slowing down can give you time to get bored. So remember the days of boredom? If you can remember that distant memory, I know. It's hard to like remember the days when you literally just had nothing to do and you just sat around bored. But there's a super interesting study out. It's from the Academy of Management. And so they studied boredom. They studied the subject of boredom and had some really interesting results. So they explained that it's number one, is one of the least understood emotions. Their conclusions were that if you were wanting to give yourself a boost in creativity, is to make yourself bored first. So they did this test with some individuals, and they gave them a super boring task to do. I think it was like counting beans out of a bowl or something monotonous, something very boring. And then they gave another group of people a more interesting task to do. And then after both groups finished their tasks, they gave them some type of creative idea generating task. And they found that the people that had the board task to begin with outperformed those who started with an interesting task, which is kind of surprising, but kind of not, right? Like, I know for myself, and maybe you're similar, or maybe you have different times when you really get your like creative juices going. But for me, it's often the kind of the quote bored times, or the times where I'm just doing something monotonous, like when I'm in the shower, or I'm on a long walk, or actually a lot of the time when I'm on vacation, when things have slowed down and I don't have anything to do. Those are the times when often I'm like sitting and thinking, I'm like, oh, what if I could do this and this and this? It's the times when you actually stop to slow down, is that you can let your brain catch up and actually do some work. So there's this Netflix show focusing on Bill Gates, and he has this time once a year that he goes out and he goes to this tiny little cabin on a waterfront. And he just brings books and a notepad and a ton of Diet Pepsis or something, Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi. And he slows down. And he described it as his brain like catching up and kind of finishing some of the work that his brain has been doing in the background. But he doesn't have the time to kind of think them through and finish off these ideas. So he needs this time. His brain needs this time to kind of catch up and to finish these kind of partial thoughts and ideas that have been, coming together over the months. And this idea to me, when I first watched that episode, I almost put stress into me, because I can't imagine like taking off time to like just think and to have ideas if we find ourselves running so thin and so packed full that we'll never have times for activities that make us bored, that make us have those ideas that we've been waiting for and that we need to get where we need to go. Slowing down is kind of the first thing that I've been thinking about, giving yourself time, giving yourself space to have a walk, have some downtime. And then I think the next step of that is just full stop, like stopping. So there's this part at the beginning of the Christian Bible where God creates the world and then he stops, which, if you think about it, is a super weird statement. Like, why would a God need to stop? Like, why would some type of immortal, all-knowing, unlimited strength, being a God, why would a God need to rest? I think regardless of, what you think about the Bible or anything, or spirituality, this practice of stopping once a week has been revolutionary to me. Like, we just started it over the last couple of weeks, and being able to stop once a week and to do absolutely nothing and just focus on the people in front of you, the people around you, yourself, and if you're religious, time to pray and reflect is amazing, because you're not a robot. Like, we are not production machines. And I know that the call of your work can be so demanding that it never feels like you can stop. But I have found so much energy and so much creativity and juices flowing in this first month of making myself stop every so often and letting, even weekly, to let my body and my mind recuperate before I start it again. Okay, so I think it's important to look at slowing down and resting and stopping for sure. But then you also have to look at how you're using the times that you're actually being productive. And one guy that has really made a big impact in my own productivity is Stephen Covey. He's been around for a long time. I don't know if he's still alive, but he has this book called I forget what it is. The Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that is this idea of, splitting all the tasks in your life into 4 quadrants. And I'm not going to go super, deep into it, but it's this idea of just because something is urgent doesn't mean it's important. And I think that's something I am totally a people pleaser at heart. And so if somebody comes to me and I have this urgent thing I need done, immediately my first reaction is, okay, let me drop everything and see how I can, get this done urgently. The reality is just because it's urgent doesn't mean that it needs to be at the top of your priority list. And so this quadrant splits it up into 4 different areas, saying things that are urgent, and then also adding to that whether it's important or unimportant. So things really can be urgent, but not important. And those are the things that can really suck up your time and your productivity if everything in your life is always just reacting and reacting. And so I really saw the value in connecting both slowing down and realizing what is urgent and important, and what also is not urgent but important. And something that's not urgent and important is working out, is doing the things that no one else will do for you, is spending time with your friends and your family. And so easily the things that are maybe not the most urgent but also some of the most important things in your life get pushed off to the end, right? It's like, oh my goodness, I haven't even been to the gym in weeks, or I haven't even spent time with my friends or my wife or my kids or my family or my mom, or I haven't called my mom or my dad in a long time. Those things can so easily get pushed off to the end because we're feeling all of the pressures of life, but we aren't taking the time to look at whether they're actually the most important. And lastly, is there an aspect to your work that you can slow down? That sounds crazy too, because slowing down maybe something in your workflow sounds not productive, and it isn't productive, which purposely doing something in your work that isn't productive sounds ludicrous. But for me, doing that has completely changed things for me. I was really feeling burnt out. I was feeling worn out from what I was doing. And it wasn't until I stopped for a minute and slowed down that I realized that I was actually missing out on some aspects of my work that I really loved. And it wasn't until I really sat back and was like, okay, what can I slow down in my work? And what options do I have? And one of those options it was moving over to shooting in film as opposed to digital. And when I say the words film, I don't mean like a video camera or cinematography. I mean like the rolls of film like that your parents had that you load into a camera and you take the photos and you send that to a lab and you wait for them to be processed, and they scan those negatives and then send that to you. And then you can see the photo that you took. And it wasn't until I did something like that it really changed how I felt about my work every day. If you look at the facts of film, it doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So it's expensive, it takes a lot of time, and you can't see the photos right away. So if you look at all the facts, shooting in film doesn't make a lot of sense. But the thing is, art and creativity It isn't about the facts. Beauty isn't factual. And the thing about film is that behind the time, behind the new, medium format professional film camera that was expensive, behind the lab fees and the shipping fees and the time of waiting to get your film back, is this hidden beauty that isn't easily accessible. It takes resources and a lot of time, and it takes a lot of learning. But back in there, back behind all of these hoops and slowing down, is this beauty in photography that makes me so giddy. So I went hiking a couple weeks ago, and at the beginning of the trail, we came to this kind of, wilderness stairwell, if that's what you call it. So it was a hill, and in the hill they had put these wooden logs. And when we approached that staircase, we looked around and we're like, wow, this is so beautiful. This is like one of the most beautiful parts of the trail. And we went hiking, we went in for, an hour or so, and then turned around and came back. And on the way back down, it was snowing, and it was a little slippery, and we were kind of in a little bit of a rush to get back to the car before it got dark, and we were trying to get back for something. And so we rushed down the stairs a little bit and found ourselves at the car. And then we realized something. Well, wait, what? We missed that like super beautiful spot. We missed that like the most beautiful part of the trail. And why? Well, because our head was down. Our heads were down, looking so we wouldn't slip, so we wouldn't make a wrong move, and so we could go faster. We were putting our heads down so we could go faster, and because of that, we missed the beauty. The thing about speed is that, yes, you get places faster, but you miss so much in the process. Our world, it revolves around speed and productivity. And with that, we get a lot of things. But with that, we lose a lot of things as well. And so maybe there's an aspect in your work that you can look at and slow down, because maybe behind all of those obstacles of slowing down and learning something different and whatever it is, the things that take time that you need to slow down in order to get through, maybe back there's some real beauty that you haven't even discovered yet. So imagine a year where you found yourself slowing down, giving yourself time to actually get bored, to give your mind an opportunity just to have a chance to catch up, and a chance to maybe think of something different, to have a new idea. Where you'd stop maybe every week, even for a couple hours, to enjoy your life, to soak in the people around you. Where you do less of those unimportant tasks and those urgent things that seem urgent to others but are not important to you. And you stop doing those and gave yourself to meaningful creative work. Where you slowed your craft down and became the best it could be. I hope this year is all of those things for you. Thank you so much for listening this week. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this podcast, I would love for you to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have some feedback, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So please shoot me a DM on Instagram and tell me what you'd like to hear on Obsessive Creative, or how I can do things better. I can't wait to talk to you next week. And until then, stay obsessed.